Great, good afternoon. I was losing track of the time there, so welcome to our Wednesday relaunch. Delighted to have you with us here today, and those of you joining us online as well, we're delighted to welcome you also. For some of you, your first time here, glad to have you in every Wednesday from 12:30. Always good soup on the go, and we hope that you find it a thoroughly nourishing, refreshing time and a chance just in the middle of the week to kind of reboot life and restart and take it on from there. I thought today we would start with a little picture and see, just quiz you a little bit in this as to whether you recognize who that is, don't you? You know who that is? Who is that? Yeah, the Lone Ranger. Do you know what his name was, though? No. The actor who played it originally was a guy called Clayton Moore, right? And you know what the Lone Ranger's kind of buddy was called? Tonto, and his horse was Trigger. No, that was the bit in his gun. It's called a no. What? Anyone know what his horse was called? Hi-ho. Silver, yeah, there you go. Okay, we got it. Yeah, so, okay, that's the Lone Ranger. And as a boy, I even had his outfit. You know, I had a blue outfit and black cowboy hat and things like that. And I just fancied being the Lone Ranger. And I've got someone else I want to show you. And I wonder if any of you know who this guy is. Anyone know who that guy is? He's pretty famous. And pretty famous up in Aberdeen now. If I told you his name is Mick, is that any help to you? Mick, if I told you his name is Mick Kennedy, you still are none the wiser. He has hit fame this week, all right? As Aberdeen became very famous this week for a particular reason. Anyone know what it was? Darvel. If I mention the word Darvel, yeah, I'll probably get shot now for mentioning Darvel. That is fame for Aberdeen, because Aberdeen lost to this side called Darvel, who come from the darkest parts of Ayrshire, which is sort of kind of way down there somewhere. And they are the sixth tier of the Football League in Scotland. And we're talking here about the second oldest cup competition in the world that has the oldest football trophy in the world, namely the Scottish Cup, that has been on the go for 149 years. And this past week, a few days ago, was the biggest upset that there has ever been in the whole of Scottish Cup history. 149 years. It happened this week, and it happened to Aberdeen. We were just on the wrong end of the result. And this guy, Mick Kennedy, is the guy who manages this side. And it was interesting listening to him chatting about how his team beat a Premier League side like Aberdeen. Because what he had to say, the team talk is actually up on the YouTube. You can kind of latch onto the team talk, and you can listen to this guy speaking about his team. And so in his team talk, I'll just pull up the words for you here on the screen there. He said it's about togetherness. He said it's about togetherness, love and respect, but he was underlining that it's about togetherness. And he went on to say we had to show our togetherness. And that, he said, that was the secret. That's how they beat Aberdeen, because they were absolutely together. And, you know, if you want to kind of listen into his team talk, you can listen into that on YouTube, as I say. And it's that theme of togetherness that really I want us to think just briefly about today. We've been reading the story of a guy called Nehemiah. Nehemiah lived a long, long time ago, long before any of you were born, long before any of you were even thought of, long before even your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents were thought of. I mean, that was years, decades, about 500 years before Jesus. So we're talking a long time ago. He lived a long time ago, and we're kind of just bit by bit working through something of his story, which is essentially about rebuilding. The story so far, because, kind of all good soaps tell you the story so far before you get into the particular episode. Story so far, this guy is in a country called Babylon that is about 1,000 miles away from his homeland of Israel. And out in Babylon, he hears bad news about the state of the city that is his home, the city of Jerusalem. It is in ruins, the walls are broken down, the gates are all broken. He hears that news, it upsets him. That's his home, and he hankers after home, and it's just bad news. And the next thing that happens is that he finds that, remarkably, God kind of opens the way for him to go to Jerusalem. Quite astonishing set of circumstances. And this guy, who's got a good job out there in Babylon, he finds the door is open for him to go to Jerusalem, to go back to Jerusalem, which is what he does. He takes the opportunity to go back to Jerusalem with the intent of actually doing something about the damage that there is and doing the rebuilding. And part of the reason for us thinking about this is because often in our own lives, there's rebuilding that has to take place. Sometimes we have to kind of rebuild relationships where they've just kind of gone down the tube and crumbled and things are just a ruin. And we have to rebuild them. Sometimes we just kind of make bad decisions, get wrong choices in life, and we end up in a mess. And it's kind of all just crumbled around us, and we realize we've got to start again, rebuild. And in some ways, that's what the whole Bible is about, God's rebuilding project. He's the God who loves to pick up ruins, crumbled lives, and rebuild them. And the story of Nehemiah is about. So there's a guy 1,000 miles away. He gets the opportunity. He comes back to Jerusalem, and we're going to pick up the story from there now. So we'll put the words on the screen of this. I'll read it, and then just say a wee bit about it. I went to Jerusalem, and after staying there 3 days, I set out during the night with a few others. I had not told anyone what my God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. There were no mounts with me except the one I was riding on. By night, I went out through the Valley Gate toward the Jackal Well and the Dung Gate, examining the walls of Jerusalem, which had been broken down, and its gates, which had been destroyed by fire. And then I moved on toward the Fountain Gate and the King's Pool, but there wasn't enough room for my mount to get through, so I went up by the valley by night, examining the wall, and finally I turned back and re-entered through the Valley Gate. In other words, he's kind of taken an open-top bus tour around the kind of mess that is Jerusalem. He's viewing just how bad things are. And sometimes that's what we need to do as a starting point. Just realize, I'm not going to pretend it's everything is okay. Things are a mess, and that's a starting point. It's bad. And so he takes the opportunity to go and view that. And then we pick up at verse 16. The officials didn't know where I'd gone or what I was doing, because as yet I had said nothing to the Jews or the priests or nobles or officials or any others who would be doing the work. And then, having seen the state of things, then I said to them, you see the trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. I also told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me. And they replied, let us start rebuilding. So they began this good work. Now, that's really all that I want you to get a hold of today. We'll put the words of that final bit on the screen for you so that it's there in front of you, because I want to pick up just these 3 words. Let us rebuild. Twice. That's underlined as we close off this reading. It is a plural activity. And that's why I began by reminding you about what happened this week, where Mick Kennedy, remember, manager of what team? Were you listening? What's his team? Darvel, okay? Don't forget that name, Mick Kennedy. His team talk is together. It's about togetherness. We aim to show togetherness. And it's that togetherness that lies at the heart of everything that is going to follow that happens in Jerusalem. Quite a remarkable story of a city that is in ruins, walls that are broken down, gates that have been burned and are broken and simply aren't there, and it is rebuilt. not by one guy doing it on his own, but together. And in the scriptures, it is that plural that is underlined for us. Let us rebuild. Because all the way through the Bible, and particularly in the New Testament, this is brought out, believers basically do life together. That's the kind of catchphrase that I want to close on with you today. Believers do life together. We'll put that on the screen for you so you get that in your head. They do life together. They live together. They work together. They serve together. They forgive one another. They care for one another. They serve one another. They labor with one another, but they do it together. They don't assume that they can do it themselves. They recognize, hey, it's a big thing, this rebuilding that God has to do in my life, in the world in which we live. And we do it together, not only with one another, but above all, we do it together with the risen, living Jesus. As believers, we've come to understand that. I can't remake my life. I can't rebuild my life. I have to do that together with him. He's the one who's really good at rebuilding, and I want to do it with him. And as we learn to do it with him, remember the words that are put up there from the lips of Jesus, apart from me, Jesus said, apart from me, you can do nothing. But with him, as one of his followers said, with him, I can do all things. And that's the reality. We begin to discover that with him, we can do what seems so big, so impossible. He's able to help us with the rebuilding, able to bring about that rebuilding in our own lives, in the life of a community it may be, in the life of a land and beyond. He's able to do that, and we learn to do that as part of a team that he has gathered around him that gets called, not Darvel, but gets called the church. And together with one another and together with him, we're able to rebuild. And then some remarkable things happen. I mean, you just imagine what it's like to live in Darvel this week. You're just still scratching your head and thinking, wow, did that really happen? That's astonishing. And they'll be on cloud nine for who knows how long. But yeah, something even more remarkable, even more wonderful, even more staggering happens when we learn to live our lives together with the Lord and together with one another as part of that team that he builds around himself. So if there's rebuilding that needs to go on in your life, it may be relationships, it may be your relationship with the Lord that's just kind of gone right down the tubes. It may be, you really got lost in life, whatever it may be. Rebuilding, it happens. It can happen. And it happens with the one who is the expert at it. And that togetherness, learning to be part of that team that he gathers around himself and doing it together. Let me pray in closing. Thank you for this story, this narrative of what happened, albeit a long, long time ago. We recognize it was nonetheless simply stunning, massive in what actually happened. And simply to have been involved in that and to be able to recognize that with you, Lord, all sorts of things become possible. That really thrills us and encourages us, because sometimes we face our own circumstances and our own particular problems with how on earth can we possibly rebuild out of that mess? How do we get ourselves out of that mess? How do we make something of that mess? And if that's anyone here, Lord, would you simply come to them in a very special way even now and impress on their hearts that that's what you mean to do in their lives, to rebuild and help them, therefore, to lay hold of you, to look to you, and to be part of that team that you gather around yourself of very different individuals who learn to combine together with you, and through your power are able to do wonderful things. Thank you for all your goodness to us. Grant us your continued blessing now for your own name's sake. Amen. Good. Well, lovely to have you, as I say, with us. Enjoy the rest of your lunch. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. We are open here till 4 again this afternoon. Lovely to have you with us online too today. And whatever your circumstances, may the Lord bless you too.